quick introduction. Some of you have heard Mick Normington speak before. This is not his first rodeo with Launchpad John, but he is a business researcher for the State Labor Department in Texas. He gathers employment data and he interviews company executives about the kind of workers they need and why they need those workers. He earned his bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Missouri, his master's, his MBA degree from the University of Georgia. He also has a master's degree in economic development from the University of Southern Mississippi. He has either written or co-written 2 different books. He co-wrote the book Working Texas Style about the fast-changing labor economy in Texas after the Great Recession. He later wrote the book An Atmosphere of Enterprise about job creation trends in Texas. He also just completed his term as board president of the Writers League of Texas, which is a nonprofit that promotes literacy and guides people in writing books about their adventures living in Texas. He is a longtime member of Toastmasters, as you were going to see from his very slick presentation. Today, he's here to discuss the modern Texas economy, skills that are in demand, and the impact of job demand. Let's give it up for Mick Normington.
Hi there, folks. I'm Mick Normington. I'm with the State Labor Department. What I do is I work with a bunch of nerds, and those nerds are counting the number of workers in different industries, different occupations, different wage areas, different regions, and at different educational attainment levels. And then I work with the nerds, and I go out and I talk to company presidents and HR directors. And we're looking for trends in the Texas jobs market. I'm going to speak very fast to you. I'm going to show you a few trends. It is my hope and prayer that over the next week or so, somebody's going to say, hey, where were you Friday morning? And you're going to say, you know, Kathy had me at this very interesting meeting, and there was a very, very young and dangerously handsome man from the State Labor Department. He said a few things that just got me thinking. That is my hope and prayer for our shared time together today. Like I say, I'm going to be talking about a few different concepts. I want you all to know that I know that there are really only 2 kinds of people in Texas. There are left-brain Texans and right-brain Texans. Some of you like data and statistics. Some of you like human trends. I'm trying to satisfy both kinds of Texans here today. Okay? Everybody got the handout? I've only got about 5 important slides on that handout that I'm going to recommend to put a star next to. This is one of them. So we're on page 1 of the handout, right? I get to talk to quite a few executives. This is one of the more interesting guys I ever got to interview. Rick is actually from rural West Texas. Worked his way up to become Vice President of Human Resources for Boeing. Rick is from a very small town down in Maverick County. It's so small that when he was in high school, a big night out was to drive all the way over into Eagle Pass, where they had a Dairy Queen. So he's from rural Texas, a very poor family, but he's one of the more interesting people in America to talk to. He's one of the most popular high school graduation speakers that we have in America. And I asked, well, what was the key advice you give to high school students? He said, the key advice I give to high school students is actually more applicable to adults. At each chapter of your life, you have to ask yourself 3 magic questions. What do you like to do in this world? What are you good at doing in this world? And how can you add value in this economy? And when your answers can overlap with one another, then you can make real headway in your career. Something to just keep in mind. Okay, I'm required by law to give you some boring economics. I'm going to spend just 2 minutes. I'm going to give you the most boring piece of economics 101 that you could possibly imagine. Okay, first I'm going to start out by saying there is no such thing as the economy. There are 3 key components to the economy. There's the money economy, the output economy, and the jobs economy. The money economy, for those of you who back in 2008, your 401k went down to a 201k, you know what the money economy is. The output economy is simply the value of goods and services that a county or a company or a country puts out. And then we come to the jobs economy, the labor economy, and that's number of people working and how much money they're earning. Okay? I'm going to be focused on the jobs economy. And when we look at the jobs economy, we start out with the geography. In Texas, nobody walks anywhere. Nobody walks outdoors in Texas. Nobody walks. We are a driving people. We drive everywhere. And as a result, driving people cross city and county boundaries all the time. To go to school, to go to work, to go out on dates, to come to Launchpad meetings. So we kind of stay within our region. I'm going to be talking about the 5-county Austin metro region. Within every region, you've got a mix of industries. Okay? Within each industry, you've got a mix of occupations. Some occupations are very tied to an industry, some are not. Several years ago, I had my 20th high school reunion. I was there talking with a buddy of mine, Charlie, who is a brain surgeon. Charlie was lamenting how much he hates his job. Hates his job. Wishes he could quit his job, but his wife is so mean she won't let him quit his job. He points out that she keeps reminding him that she paid for him to go to medical school, and she gave him 3 beautiful children, and she won't let him quit his $200,000 a year job. He's got the meanest wife in America. And he said, Mick, I'm stuck in this damn dysfunctional healthcare industry for the rest of my life. I said, Charlie, that's really tough. Also at our table was our classmate Jackie. Jackie got an accounting degree. Jackie's up in Dallas. Jackie's working in her 3rd industry. Okay? Some occupations are very tied to an industry and to a region. Some are not so tied to an industry or a region. Within every group of occupations, you've got specific people at specific jobs. And within every specific job, we say that there are 100 to 200 specific skills. This becomes the great challenge. What is a skill? What is a skill? In Texas, we have 485,000 employers. I read through a lot of their job postings. They describe skills in about 485,000 different ways. In Texas, we have 12 million people working full-time and another 600,000 people looking for a job actively. And so I look at a lot of their flowered-up resumes, and they describe skills in about 600,000 different ways as well. What is a skill? This miscommunication we have between job seekers and between companies as to what they want and the language that they use is one of the key constraints in our economy. It's causing a lot of friction, and hence a lot of us are here today. What is a skill, and how you interpret your skills will be one of your greatest challenges for all the chapters for the rest of your life. Okay, racing forward. We're going to play a quick game here. The nerds and I like to lay out a map of Texas and color code it by the top industry of employment. We've got 19 major industries. These are the big 7 industries in Texas. I've color coded them for you. What I've done is I've gone way back to 1990. I know this is a long, long time ago. I know most people in this room weren't even alive in 1990. That's a long, long time ago. Dinosaurs roamed the streets of Austin way back in 1990. But way back in 1990, the #1 industry of employment in Texas was manufacturing. So I've labeled that in yellow. I also want you to keep an eye on two other key industries. Navy blue for healthcare, the darkest color here, and retail trade in pink, the lightest color. And over time, we've gone from a manufacturing-centered economy to a healthcare economy today. Healthcare is by far and away, the fastest job growth area that we have in Texas for a variety of reasons. The nerds insist that I give you the data behind these numbers, so if you want to just look at the numbers, what you're going to see is that over the last 25 years, the manufacturing sector has lost about 9% of its total workers. The healthcare industry has gained more than 120% job growth. You see the wage changes in the industries as well, but as a result, we are now healthcare Texas. And we are very normal in Texas. Healthcare is the #1 industry of occupation in 47 of the 50 states. There's only 3 outlier states, Alaska, Hawaii, and Nevada, where something called hospitality and tourism is the #1 industry of employment. Otherwise, we are a healthcare nation. And that continues to be the industry with the fastest job growth. And as far as my nerds can tell, that's how it's going to be for at least the next 2 decades as America continues to evolve. Okay, racing forward, I'm almost done with the boring stuff, then we're going to get into the cool stuff. I'm required to show you some boring information. If we want to look at the industries as far as employment growth, Texas is in red, the United States is in blue here. I'm just showing you a 12-month snapshot, June to June, total employment growth. So in Texas, we are adding jobs at a clip of 2.3% per 12 months. Okay? That's pretty good. Excuse me, United States, 2.1%. This is the oil and gas industry. Otherwise, we've got pretty healthy growth everywhere else except for manufacturing. But otherwise, a lot of employment growth. A lot of employment growth. And this is coming because oil is now down. West Texas Intermediate should be at about $50 a barrel. 1 year ago, it was at $80-something a barrel. And so that impacts the oil and gas industry, which only makes up about 3% of the Texas economy, but nevertheless has a big ripple effect. But otherwise, a lot of positive job growth in a lot of industries. Of course, the healthcare industry has the most of it. If you want to take a look at any of our data, here's where the nerds and I hide the data. If you want to take a look at it yourself, you just go to our website and click on the Tracer 2 website, and you can see all kinds of economic data that we show for you. This is a particular interesting slide. Do I have this in the handout? What page are we on the handout? Okay. The nerds and I aren't supposed to show you this information. We don't have this information for Texas, but this is for America. I'm showing you 2 pieces of information here. The black line is the number of people quitting their jobs, voluntarily quitting their jobs, telling the boss to take this job and shove it. The red line is people being involuntarily laid off. Okay? And so I went back to 2004 to show you about a decade's worth of trend here. The black line, we had a lot of people quitting their jobs before the recession. This gray bar is the recession period. Then during the recession, the number of people telling the boss to take this job and shove it dropped dramatically. The recession was a fantastic time for bosses. Bosses were treated very, very well during the recession. The number of people getting laid off involuntarily spiked up during the recession. But since the recession, things have improved in a very interesting way. The number of people being involuntarily laid off continues to be flat, continues to happen, but it's not going up. The number of people voluntarily quitting their jobs continues to go up in America. And the nerds and I think that this is a sign of a very confident America. You've got to be very confident about your economic future in order to tell the boss to take this job and shove it. Especially after the Great Recession and the shock that that gave America. Nevertheless, we've got more and more people quitting their jobs. Hang on. I get all the funny lines here. We're going to be discussing generational difference in a moment. I get the funny lines here. No more cookies for these people. But this is opening up new job openings across America. Something to keep in mind. Okay, racing forward. I'm going to show you a little bit of history here. This is 1950 in America. These were the top occupations in America. It's very interesting to see how the economy has changed. What page are we on the handout now?
We don't have that
Oh. Okay. Just something I love seeing. Farmer was the #1 occupation industry, and farm laborer was also in the top 6 occupations. To see how much we've changed from an agrarian society to an industrial society to a knowledge society. Very interesting to see the distribution of jobs here in America. You want to take a look at the United States of 2012. Retail sales workers replaced farmer as the #1 occupation in America. Obviously, we're much more of a consumer-oriented society today than we were about 60 years ago. But it's also interesting to look at Texas. Again, retail sales worker, #1 occupation of employment, and fast food worker, #2 occupation of employment in Texas. Just to give you an idea what the distribution of occupations are in Texas. But I want to take us forward to the present. if we look at the data that we got from December 2014, these are your top 20 occupations in the Austin metro area. Austin metro area is going to be the 5-county area of Travis, Williamson County, Hayes County, Caldwell, and Bastrop counties. Okay? So these are the top occupations. I listed it out. I think I went down to the top 50 occupations over 3 slides in your handout. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to give you an idea. And I also threw in the, excuse me, median pay in 2014 for those occupations, just to give you some idea of what different occupations tend to pay. Now we're going to get on to the cool stuff. What page are we on now in the handout? 10 for help wanted job listings, Austin metro area. It's page 10. I'm begging you to put a star next to this. I'm begging you to put a star next to this page. The nerds and I have this software that goes out on the internet every night and looks at all the help wanted online job postings, whether those are help wanted online job postings in the Austin American Statesman, or at Work in Texas, or at Walmart.com, and filters out the duplicates. And what we do is we sort them by specific occupation. And so what I'm showing you here is as of the last 90 days, this is a 90-day snapshot of the most in-demand occupations in the Austin metro area right now. And what I've done is I've ranked them by number of independent job postings, a change from 1 year ago. So a change for this same occupation, demand for this same occupation for this same 90-day period 1 year ago. I only want you to pay attention to if we see a preponderance of positive, of pluses, meaning demand continues to go up. And I only want you to pay attention if that demand is up or down by more than 15%. Okay? If it's less than 15%, it's kind of statistical noise. But all in all, I think I'm showing you your top 70 occupations in demand right now. This is interesting because of a few things. I want you to look for 3 magic words on this list. I think this list goes over 5 slides. The 3 magic words are manager, supervisor, degree. Do you see any of the magic words on this list of your top 70 occupations most in demand right now in your community? Manager, supervisor, degree. Do you see any of those magic words? Yes. We've seen a spike in the last 4 years of those 3 magic words on this list for the Austin metro area for a variety of reasons, okay? But that is how our jobs economy in our community is changing. We also want you to just keep an eye on a number of plus signs versus minus signs. I mean, to be frank, essentially, if you look at our occupations, demand is rising for about 8 out of 10 occupations from 1 year ago in the Austin metro area. If you go to Houston, demand is going down for about 8 out of 10 occupations in the Houston metro area. Houston is very dependent on the price of oil. And the price of oil is going down, and as a result, it's reducing demand for different workers. We are not dependent on the price of oil. We are a much more diversified economy in Austin. As a result, we continue to grow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why the Austin economy continues to grow. But I just want you to keep an eye on the number of pluses compared to the number of minuses on this list. I want you to also keep an eye on a few specific occupations. Do you see any occupations on this list that are tied to the information technology business or the healthcare business? Do you see them? Oh, you do. Oh, do you? That might give you an idea of more of the evolution and the very new and modern, rapid evolution of the Austin jobs economy as well. Just to give you an idea. I also, in the 4th column here, put down minimum training and education required that we typically see from Texas employers, just to give you an idea. Now, there's all kinds of jobs across the spectrum. You don't have to have a master's degree to get most of these jobs. That's cool, but I want you to have some perspective about what your local employers are looking for. I would also like you to look at which of these occupations tend to be driven by the population growth. Population growth is a key driver in the Austin economy. I don't know if anybody's been on Interstate 35 recently. Have you seen a few people on Interstate 35 recently? Just a few? Okay, well. Population growth is also driving demand for some of our key occupations, such as registered nurse, such as truck driver. Truck driver is the first leading economic indicator occupation that the nerds and I look at on this list. If demand for truck drivers is going up, it means that the consumers in that community are buying more stuff, and that stuff probably got delivered on trucks. It also means the businesses in that community are buying more stuff, and that stuff probably got delivered on trucks. So the fact that our demand for truck drivers is very high, and it continues to go up, is a sign that our economy is going to continue to grow here in the Austin metro area. Demand for registered nurses continues to be high simply because of population growth. Population growth means you need more service-oriented workers, such as hamburger flippers, nurses, teachers, a lot more service-related jobs as your population grows. And we have pretty dynamic population growth going on right now. But it's very, very interesting. There's some other key occupations that we really keep an eye out for, like number 42 here on the list. This is anything that's related to human resources demand, we really keep an eye on for. During the recession, some of the first people to be laid off in Texas and America were human resources and training managers. That's because the HR and training department is an expense center. It is not a revenue center. And so if you want to increase your profit margin or you want to keep your company alive, you reduce the expenses in your expense center. Now, in America, demand for human resources managers has only been creeping up, and it's been creeping up very slowly for Texas. But there's one local market where demand is very high. Demand for a human resources specialist is not in the top 50 occupations in demand for almost any other community in America. This is a very, 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 very good sign. Companies are only going to hire HR professionals if they anticipate hiring more workers over the next 2 to 3 years. Anything that's related to human resources is what the nerds and I really key in on when we're looking at this list. This is the best sign on this entire list. This means that the companies in Austin are expecting to hire more workers for the next 2 to 3 years at least. At least. This is a huge, huge sign for us. And we don't know why demand has spiked so much in the last 12 months. But that's dramatic. Going through this list, please keep an eye on anything that, any occupations that you might be interested in for the next chapter of your life. And like I say, and here's human resources manager. Continuous demand is spiking up for that as well. We also keep an eye on a few other occupations, such as lawyer. This concerns us a little bit. Back in 2008, 2009, we had tens of thousands of unemployed lawyers in Texas. It got to the point where I was talking with some of the unemployment office managers in Houston. I said, folks, tell me about the toughest people who are unemployed to get reemployed. And they said, Nick, that's easy. People with neck tattoos and people with law degrees. And heaven forbid you have both. And this is because in Texas we've got a lot of law schools, pumping out a lot of people with law degrees. And perhaps we have an oversupply of lawyers. In Austin, this had been growing. Demand had been positive for the last 3 years, and recently it just turned around. Not the best time to be graduating with a law degree right now in the Austin market. And if so, law might not be the kind of job you want to go into. There's other opportunities for you. But very interesting. We also keep an eye on hairdressers. This concerns us a lot. That demand is dropping rapidly for hairstylists. I don't know what this says about Austinites and the way we're keeping up our appearances, but that kind of concerns us a little bit. We also keep an eye on demand for bartenders. This is Austin, Texas, after all. I assume we have a complete oversupply of bartenders, almost all of whom have graduate degrees in this town. But nevertheless, it's one of the few places in Texas where demand continues to rise for bartenders. I don't entirely know why, but perhaps it's the people with law degrees going to the bar more often. I'm not sure. Okay. We can also break out the very first website that posted a job posting, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to play a little game here. I'm going to read the name of the company that first posted these job postings. I'm going to go through the top 35 companies locally who are advertising for workers right now. I'm going to read the name of the company. I want you to shout out back at me what industry they're in. Whether that company is in healthcare, technology, energy, manufacturing, agriculture, retail sales, financial services, staffing, whatever. Okay? So I'm going to read through these top 35 companies who are looking for workers right now in the last 90 days. Okay? Ready? On your marks, get set, go. Dell, what industry? Good. Ascension Health, healthcare. IBM, Accenture, Robert Half, Staffing, University of Texas, Randstad, Hospital Corporation of America, Goodwill, Staffing in this case. Very good, very good, very impressive. Aerotech, Macy's, Kforce, Austin ISD, Texas State, Wells Fargo, Apple, St. David, Brookdale, Healthcare, Austin Medical Center, Tech Systems, IT Staffing, Catch a Fire. They look for volunteers, so it's volunteer staffing. Computer Task Group, Technology Staffing, General Motors, Technology Manufacturing, Samsung, Technology Manufacturing, St. David's, okay, Baylor Scott and White, Austin Community College, North Austin Medical Center, Lowe's, Retail, Pflugerville ISD, Deloitte, Technology, Financial Services, Accounting, Whole Foods, Kelly Girls, Hilton, HT Group. That's your economy. That's your economy right now. That is our economy. What industries were you shouting out? Don't speak up. What industries were you not shouting out? Don't speak up. Just think. What industries were you not shouting out? I don't want anybody in those industries to feel bad. Okay, so just think about what we were not, as far as industries themselves. What were we not shouting out? Okay. You want to just think about, again, the difference between industries and occupations. We're focused on occupations now. Just for Texas, Texas is a bit more blue-collar of a state than the Austin metro area is. Just to give you an idea. You're also going to see a lot more negative demand occupations in their top list. This is really the impact of the price of oil dropping. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the future. The nerds and I take all that data about number of workers in different occupations and industries and regions, and we look over the last 5 years, and then we pull in some additional data from the Census Bureau and from industries themselves, and we do some low-level calculus to extrapolate forward, and basically look through what we're expecting to see demand for workers, excuse me, over the next 8 to 10 years. If we want to look at the industries that the nerds and I are anticipating adding the most workers, number one, healthcare and social services. Of course, everybody knows that Texas is blessed with many natural resources, don't we? And there are two natural resources that really dominate Texas. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. Texas is blessed with many old people and many very young people. And the customers of the healthcare and social assistance industry are very old people and very young people. And we're making more of them every day, which is why the nerds and I are very convinced that the industry that's going to continue adding the most jobs over the next 10 years is going to continue to be healthcare and social assistance. If we want to break it down as to more specific industries, narrow down the focus, restaurants, big growth area. The Centers for Disease Control point out that Texas is one of those states where we Texans are eating out more and eating at home less. I'm a normal Texan. I am helping the Whataburger family of Texas expand their payrolls, expand their bottom lines. I'm putting Whataburger juniors through college. I'm doing the same for the Dairy Queen family of Texas. I'm helping them out as well. I'm putting little dairy princesses through college. I'm a normal Texan. This trend is showing no sign of slowing down. We are getting bigger as Texans because we're eating out more, and we're eating out more frequently, which is why this will continue to be, as far as the nerds and I can tell, the big industry of growth. Now, we identify 821 specific occupations in Texas. If we want to look at the occupations that are the top 10 occupations growing the most as far as rate of growth. This is your top 10 occupations. Do any of these occupations look like they're in the healthcare industry? Any of these? What page are we on in the handout?
15.
Do any of these occupations look like they're in the healthcare field? A few. That's for the right brain people. Left brain people, exact same data. Just got to keep the left brain people involved here. I went down to the top 15 occupations, gave you a little bit more, but this is just for the left brain people. Same information. And if we want to look at the top 10 occupations with the most net growth over the decade, the number one growth occupation in Texas is fast food worker. Big growth in fast food. Do not look in the right-hand column on this slide. Do not look in the right-hand column on this slide. We're going to move forward. Moving forward. If you want to look up this information yourself and go deeper into these lists, here's where you go deeper. If you want to look at our projections, here's where you can go. You go into that Tracer website, you click on the future, you go down here to the occupations, and you're going to click on this little arrow here. You're going to see the 28 different regions for the state. We call the Austin metro area the capital area. So Kathy's area is a capital area. We're going to download this information for you as an Excel spreadsheet. I can't stress this enough. You have to get used to using Excel. Excel is the number one skill in demand in Texas. I can't stress it enough. Understanding the Excel spreadsheet is the number one skill in demand by Texas employers. The number one skill in demand by Texas employers is understanding the Excel spreadsheet. I don't know if you've heard this before. The number one skill in demand by Texas employers is understanding the Excel spreadsheet. The more you can do with Excel, the more employable you are. The more you can do with Excel, the more you're going to keep more jobs. The more you can do with Excel, the more valuable you are in the Texas economy. The number one skill in demand in Texas is understanding the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, moving forward. So we're going to force you, if you want to look at our information, we're going to force you to look at it on Excel spreadsheets. Because we're that mean. That's how mean the nerds are. Okay. I can't ignore the issue of population growth. Population growth is driving a lot of job creation. Number one growth county in America is right there, but here's our top few counties as far as growth rates, just to give you an idea. Does anybody recognize any of these counties on the counties that are growing at the fastest rate in Texas? Does anybody recognize any of these counties? Does anybody recognize any of these counties here? Does anybody recognize any of these? Tremendous population growth. Tremendous population growth. Creating more jobs. Creating more opportunities. Creating more people that you're competing for jobs with as well. And just to give you an idea where those people are coming from, most of the people who are coming to our Austin metro area are coming from elsewhere in Texas. But if we want to look at who's coming from out of state, here's where they're coming from. They're really coming from everywhere. They're really coming from everywhere. The truth is that Florida, Louisiana, and Oklahoma are the big states that send people here. But just to give you an idea. And growth rates, these are the top 5 states in America that some nerds who we hire are projecting employment growth rates for over the next 5 years, just to give you an idea. Okay, I got to stop boring you people. It's very interesting. I get to work with quite a few people who are job seekers. And I was dealing last fall with this young man who was 28 years old. He was about to be discharged from the Army. He was at Fort Bliss in El Paso. And he sent me his MOS resume. And I put it through this tool that we have that filters a person's resume for the actual skills. Because nobody's good at writing a resume. And the worst part is employers aren't really good at posting job postings and writing their own job descriptions. So we've got this tool that we're experimenting with that works with veterans called Texas Skills Tool. And I put his MOS resume through this tool. And I said, okay, here, based on your skills that are listed on your resume, here are 50 current job postings, and here's the hyperlink to those job postings. And he wanted to be in San Antonio. His name was Sergeant Ryan. He graduated from San Marcos High School. His mom's still living at San Marcos High School. He really wanted a job in San Antonio, so he could be close to his mom, but not too close to his mom. And he'd been working as a computer analyst in the Army. So he spent 8 years in the Army. The first 4 years, he was a paratrooper, trigger puller, not really creating any positive skills. And his second 4 years, he was a computer analyst, and that was he was hoping could help him after the Army. And so sent him this list, and he immediately emailed me back to say, Mick, I have 0 college credits. Almost all these jobs you're listing say I got to have a bachelor's degree. I said, Sergeant Ryan, go ahead and apply for these 50 jobs, because based on your skills, you qualify for these jobs. He applied for all those jobs. Number 42 on the list was a computer analyst job at USAA Insurance in San Antonio. The first sentence of the job posting was, must have a bachelor's degree. It was the first sentence of this job posting. Must have a bachelor's degree to be a computer analyst. He applied for the job. The next day, he gets an email from USAA sending him to a web portal where he's to see if he can get through 3 tests online. The first test was simply a test of keyboarding skills. The second test was a test of computer analysis. He got through that test. The third test was a series of 3 paragraphs. They kept explaining different scenarios, and he was asked to make a decision. He assumed it was a reading comprehension test, so he filed his answers. And the next day, he gets a phone call from the recruitment department at USAA to say, hey, we're really impressed that you passed the test. Oh, by the way, that third test was not a reading comprehension test. It was a decision-making test to see if you could make moral and ethical decisions. And you passed that test. We're very impressed. We'd like you to talk to an HR manager. But before we do, we've got a question for you. Why are you applying for a job? You don't discharge from the Army for another 2 weeks. And Sergeant Ryan responded, well, I was talking with my career counselor from Workforce Solutions, and they said I've really got to get the ball moving and really start to look for jobs, because the more I look for jobs, the more I'm going to understand what my skills are and what the employers want. And so just thought it'd be good. The recruiter said, yeah, we get tens of thousands of resumes from former military people. All of them have been out of work and have been discharged more than 6 months. We never get resumes from people who are still active duty in the military. That's very proactive of you, Sergeant Ryan. We're going to have you talk to an HR director. The next day, he gets a phone call from the HR director who wants to just talk to him. And they talk for about 30 minutes, back and forth and back and forth. And the HR director says, well, Sergeant Ryan, you've done very well at this phone interview. The number 1 skill we're looking for at USAA is oral communication. As a computer analyst, you're probably never going to speak to an actual customer, but you're going to be speaking to your coworkers a lot every day. And Sergeant Ryan said, well, oral communication wasn't listed in your job posting. And the HR director said, yeah, job postings are more of an art than science. We'd like you to come in for a job interview after you discharge from the Army. Day after he discharges from the Army, he goes in for his in-person interview in San Antonio. He got the job. What was the first sentence of that job posting? He got the job. 0 college credits. He got the job. That's why the nerds and I are pretty sure that in 2015, in Texas, this is what employers are looking for. Number 1, specific skills. You have specific skills to do the job you're applying for.
Number two, relevant work experience. Was your last job or the previous job very similar to the job that you're applying for now? Again, I don't know if I told you this, but companies are very slow to do more worker training in America. They laid off a lot of HR and training managers, and they've been very slow to reintroduce training on site. So they really are looking for people who can hit the ground running. The third issue is soft skills and social competencies. This is a major trend going on in 2015 in Texas. Companies identifying the soft skills that they want and measuring job seekers, and more importantly, their existing workers, for the soft skills that they value. And distant fourth is educational attainment. Distant fourth. Back in 2009, educational attainment was number one here because companies were filtering based on college degree. Not so much anymore in Texas. We're pretty sure that this is the rank order of what employers are looking for in Texas. Here's the rub. You've got to have all four to some degree. You've got to have all four. But again, I want to point out, Sergeant Ryan, you got the job. Okay, we're going to do a quick pop quiz. Kathy, I hope everybody's been taking notes and paying attention. Every 4 years, the Charles Schwab investment firm and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America survey American high school students. Ask them some basic questions. First question, American high school student, how much money per year do you think you're going to be making when you're starting out in your career, like at age 22? And the second question, American high school student, how much money per year do you think you're going to be making in your career when you're very old and well established in your career? And I mean really, really old, like 40. How much money do you think you're going to make? Does anybody want to guess what the answer is to number one? What does the average American high school student think they're going to be making at age 22? Does anybody want to guess?
$50,000 a year.
100,000.
100,000. When I was 22 with my bachelor's degree, I was making $15,000 a year. And my mother and Kathy were thrilled that I had a job, okay? Does anybody have more rational expectations? Any other guesses?
Yeah. 50,000.
40,000. 50,000? Almost all teenagers in Texas make $7.25 an hour. Why they think that in 5 years they're going to be making $35 an hour? We don't know. We don't know. Thank you so much for playing. We don't know. Why do boys think they're going to make so much more money than girls? We don't know. We have no idea. That's enough. I get the funny lines here, Kathy. I get the funny lines. Does anybody want to guess what the average teenager thinks they're going to be making when they're very, very old and barely able to walk at age 40? Does anybody want to guess? Does anybody? How much? $4 million. Why? Who said 200? Okay. Thank you for playing. Thank you for playing. Why teenagers think this, we don't know. And why boys think they're going to make about 25% more than girls, we don't know. We don't know. It's very interesting. Why do they think they're going to make $70 an hour? We don't know. There's no data about what do Texans make at different ages. I go back and forth with the nerds at the U.S. Department of Labor on this. In general, a 22-year-old in Texas makes a little bit more than $22,000 a year on average. A 40-year-old in Texas makes a little bit more than $40,000 a year. That's reality. I show you this not to make fun of teenagers, although I love making fun of teenagers. I love it. It's a hobby of mine. It's like fish in a barrel. I'm not showing you this to make fun of teenagers. This is not a factor of being a teenager. This is a factor of being a human being. All human beings misoverestimate their economic futures. That's why having some information and making more informed decisions can help you tremendously in your life. If you want to look up specific wages in your capital area, here's the website you can go to with the numbers. You're going to go to the capital area here, and we've got information on 650 occupations in the capital area. Just to give you an idea of pay, okay? Okay. It's interesting in talking with company presidents and human resources directors, here are some of the key issues that they point out. Number one issue they keep pointing out is 4 generations of workers in the same workforce, and they're rotten at talking to one another. Just rotten at talking to one another at work. I mean rotten, according to the company president. 4 generations, we've got 5 generations of adults in America. Number one is the greatest generation that won World War II. Their age is 85 and older. The next is the silent generation, ages 68 to 84. They account for 0.8% of the workers in Texas. So several of them are still working. Next is the ginormous baby boomer generation, ages 51 to 67. Then you've got my tiny generation. I'm 47. I'm a member of Generation X. We're between 35 and 49. Tiny generation, half the size of the baby boomer generation. And then you have the millennial generation, between the ages of 20 and 35. Okay? According to the companies, we're terrible at talking if we even talk to one another at work. We've got some other issues here. Baby boomers dominating these industries. I'm going to get to these other points. But another key issue is massive diversity in the Texas workforce. In the last 20 years, the biggest trend has been a lot more women working. But also a lot more Hispanic Americans, a lot more African Americans, a lot more Asian Americans, a lot more people with college degrees we've never heard of 20 years ago, from institutions we've never heard of 20 years ago. Just a lot more diversity and being able to understand a lot more kinds of people. All right. I hope this is not in your handout. Right? Too controversial. I'm just going to explain this out for you. What I'm showing you here are the 3 dominant generations in the Texas workforce by year, and I can go back to 2000 through 2013. The red bar is the baby boomer generation. The blue bar is my tiny Gen X generation. And the green bar is the millennials. So this is important because my generation, my tiny generation, has been dominating the Texas workforce. We make up the largest percentage of workers in Texas. It doesn't mean we Gen Xers are in charge of anything. The baby boomers are still in charge of everything in Texas, particularly hiring decisions. But just to give you an idea, we are basically maxed out and we make up about 37% of the workers in Texas. The baby boomers, they're still over 30% of the workers. But that's because they've been retiring.
Just imagine, in Texas, when you talk to the parents of the Social Security Department, they find out that no baby boomer women are retiring in Texas. That almost none. Keep that in mind for your own career paths and for understanding your own jobs market. In Texas, no baby boomer women are retiring. No, do not speak this aloud. The millennial generation, larger, much larger than the baby boomer generation in Texas, continues to make headway. They account for about 32% of the workers in Texas. Here's the rub. They account for about 38% of the adults in Texas. There's a massive gap in Texas. For the last decade, this has been one of the worst places in America for people in their 20s to get a job. Just a tough job. And as a result, we've got this danger in Texas of a lost generation. A generation who's not getting their first job, picking up those marketable skills. A generation who's not picking up their second job, picking up those marketable skills. A generation where perhaps a quarter of the people are not moving forward on their career earnings path. The threat of a lost generation is a real challenge for Texas. Real challenge. Okay, racing forward. I talked about the issue of knowledge transfer. And companies, HR directors, and presidents are stressing it. This is a major issue in workplaces. These 4 generations not talking to one another at work. I point this out because if you can make friends with somebody who's much older, much younger than you, and talk about how to do work better,
how to do work faster, how to do work and get new kinds of clients, how to do work and get better kinds of clients, how to do things a little bit different. If you can make friends with somebody who's much older, much younger than you will be a hero. The HR professors in my department have been looking for companies in Texas that solve this knowledge transfer problem between generations. We found 0 companies. 0 companies that solve this. If you can make friends with somebody much older, much younger, you will be a hero. That will be a competitive advantage that you have in finding a job and keeping it. Okay, I'm going to race through a few of these points. We'll catch you on the handout. I'm hoping you're going to put a star next to this. The more math you take, the more money you make in Texas. And it's that simple. I wasn't good at math in high school. I didn't take calculus until I was 27. I didn't take my first statistics class until I was 28. I didn't take my second statistics class until I was 29. I didn't take labor market statistics class until I was 43. And every single time I had to get a tutor or help from classmates with a professor. If a knucklehead like me can get through advanced applied math, then anybody can. Anybody can. Okay. This is another key issue that I can't stress enough. Job postings are getting longer, meaning there's a lot more language in Texas job postings. You're looking for more kinds of technical skills as employers further define technical skills. It's going to be a key issue for all of us, but everybody has something that they're good at. A few years ago, I was speaking to the Houston ISD, and afterwards, this woman runs up to me and she says, I'm a jobs counselor at high school. I want to tell you about the toughest student I had to get into a job. She said, this young man had autism. And I said, lady, what do you mean by autism? You mean this guy just couldn't pick up on social skills? Most of us men in Texas can't pick up on social cues. She said, no, this young man was on the spectrum. He was way over. And I was very good at getting him job interviews. But those interviews were always ended after 5 minutes, as he had a hard time explaining what he could do. And the job interviewer got very frustrated. Well, this went on for 2 years. And she met with him at least once a week for 2 years to try to help him find a job. And each time he mentioned eating pizza. Well, one night, she's walking out of a movie theater with her husband in Houston, and she walks by CC's Pizza. She sees a man putting a help wanted sign in the window. She goes in and she asks, what's the job? And he said, easiest job in America to fill. Everybody loves pizza. This is a back kitchen assembly job. You come in the morning, you assemble the doughs, the sauce, the meat. He says, I'll have this job filled in 30 minutes. But in 3 months, I'm going to get the call. Hello, boss. I quit. The smell of pizza is driving me insane. I'm sorry, you've been a great boss, but I quit. I'm never coming in again. Goodbye. He said he gets that phone call like clockwork every 3 months. She convinces him to try out the autistic young man. He's been in that job now for more than 4.5 years. Everybody is good at something. Everybody is good at something. Everybody is good at something. It becomes important to understand what do you like to do in this world, what are you good at doing in this world, and how can you add value in this economy. Everybody is good at something. Okay, racing forward. Is this in your handout? Yeah, just as we look at job postings, the nerds and I, here's 20 occupations. Didn't even exist in Texas 10 years or 5 years ago. For most of these occupations, you don't even need to have a degree. But we're seeing demand rise for these job titles. So these haven't been classified as occupations yet, but they are job titles that are continually more in demand. I'm seeing a lot of confused looks on a lot of faces. Anything you need help interpreting here? Chief Listening Officer. The Chief Marketing Officer job is declining. Chief Listening Officer is overseeing listening to important constituents. And those constituents are, of course, suppliers. The Chief Listening Officer can often oversee social media folks who are dealing with customers. Okay? Millennial generation consultant, that's primarily for retail companies who are trying to figure out how to sell to those 80 million plus millennials. They don't have a lot of money because they haven't moved forward in their careers enough. However, there's more than 80 million of them, and they like to buy consumer goods. So retail companies are trying to find different kinds of ways of selling to that massive population. Yes?
Cyborg anthropologist and big data engineer.
Big data engineer, I think you can figure out. Cyborg anthropologist had started out as somebody who looks at how human beings interact with these crazy things. It's evolved so that in San Antonio and in Switzerland, people are taking the microchips from inside of these and inserting them into the brains of volunteers. Stephen Hawking was the first volunteer to agree to do this, with the idea being that science can continue to improve, so that in the future, can I borrow your sunglasses, Captain? So that in the future, you'll have special glasses that you put on and click into the microchip embedded in your brain, and you can look at the internet through your special glasses, so that you can always get emails 24/7, so you can always get Facebook posts 24/7, so you can always get those Twitter updates all the time. You can always be on the internet all the time. It's going to be an amazing society we live in. It's going to be fantastic. Any other key questions before we move on? Foot fit specialist is a shoe salesman who got a certificate in foot fit.
Basically, it's a great job for people with foot fetish.
I get the funny lines here. I get the funny lines. Hair blowout stylist, I heard mentioned. Hair blowout stylist. This is a new kind of job. Apparently, there are some hair salons where they don't have any scissors. You just go in and somebody sprays some product on you and blows out your hair. I'm not in the market for this. But there are two areas in America where demand for these kinds of workers is growing extremely high. Those markets are Los Angeles and Dallas. And a lot of demand, and according to data, only 10% of hairstylists can actually do hair blowout. So it's some interesting innate skills that you have to do this. Okay, racing forward. Real quick, we talked to a lot of teenagers. It's very interesting to see what their occupational interests are. I'm not going to belabor this because I don't see too many teenagers in this room.
What did the black diamond mean on that?
The Black Diamond is, these are the top 30 occupations that our Texas high school students are most interested in. If it's got a black diamond, that's a high growth occupation. But the point of this is, we've never had so many black diamonds on this list. The point is that Texas high school students are more and more interested in the occupations that are actually more in demand. Texas high school students are a little bit less interested in being professional athletes, and more interested in doing things that actually pay and where there's actually job openings. And I'll just tell you an interesting aside. 25 years ago, number 35 on this list was professional cheerleader. Professional cheerleader, and I don't mean to demean anybody who's been a cheerleader. Professional cheerleader is one of the lowest paying jobs in America, one of the lowest paying jobs in Texas. There's only a handful of jobs to be a professional cheerleader, and it's not a growing occupation. Last year was the first year we had 0 kids in Texas express an interest in being a professional cheerleader. That's huge. The nerds and I are celebrating. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Unfortunately, a sports athlete continues to be high on the list. And we have to point out, Jerry Jones is not expanding. He's not adding more jobs. He's got one Tony Romo. He doesn't want any more Tony Romos. So it's not a growth occupation. Some people are getting the message as to what jobs are more in demand. Some are not. Just something to consider. But again, the black diamonds, we love seeing it. Okay, racing forward. I got some coworkers who do these kinds of presentations for schools and school boards. If that's something that you're interested in, you and your school can contact two of my nerds here. Okay, I'm going to start to wrap up now. This is an online tool called Texas Reality Check. It's an online game we created for high school students. It's a game, you go in, you click on Reality Check, you decide what metro area you want to live in. You go and you make 22 decisions about the kind of lifestyle you want to have, about what kind of occupation you want to go into, and the cost of the education for that occupation. Now, this is an online game that we thought would be to help high school students understand if they've got champagne tastes on a Budweiser budget. We designed this to have 100,000 users hit it per month. We get 1.6 million users hit this per month. Only half of whom are teenagers. The other half are adults who seem to want to tell the boss to take this job and shove it, or figure out the next chapter of their life. It's an easy game to play. It takes the average teenager in Texas 14 minutes to play the game their first time. It takes the average Texas adult 19 and a half minutes to play the game their first time. Why it takes adults so much longer to make career decisions in a game, we don't know. We don't know. But it's very interesting to see that. I'm going to quickly just mention these books. I read quite a few books about the jobs economy. This one is interesting. This is just Mick mentioning this to you. This is not from the Texas Workforce Commission. This is simply from Mick and his things that he finds interesting. These are the two most interesting books I've read in the last 8 years about the jobs issues. Number one is How Starbucks Saved My Life. It's about a man who in his 50s gets laid off from his job in New York City. He's a high-paid manager, and after getting laid off, he realizes he doesn't have any marketable skills. He spent the last 30 years just yelling at workers as opposed to actually picking up any skills. And he accidentally gets a job at Starbucks, okay, and it changes his life. It gives him a totally new attitude about what he needs to work. The Gift of Job Loss was written by Michael Froehls here in Austin, and it's fantastic about how people tend to learn and evolve when they're unemployed. I highly recommend both these books if it's of something interesting. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now and point out that when we talk to employers, here's the top 5 things they say they require. Number one, good communication skills. Can you explain who you are in 2 sentences? Can you explain your organization in 2 sentences? Can you ask for information from your coworker in 2 sentences? Concise communication skills are more than that. I can't recommend Toastmasters enough. Toastmasters is a fantastic club. You've got one here. I'm in the club over at Kathy's office at Workforce Solutions. We meet every other Tuesday there. Fantastic as far as a neutral laboratory to help you communicate better and give you practical experience. Critical thinking skills. If you're explained a series of events, can you make a logical conclusion and not an emotional conclusion as to what will happen next? Technical degrees. Have you heard? The number one skill in demand in Texas is understanding the Excel spreadsheet. Has anybody heard that before? Yeah. Can't stress it enough. I cannot stress it enough, okay? Can do a pleasant attitude, and can you work with people who look different than you? And do you have experience of working with people who look different than you? Those are all surface level answers. When I ask deeper questions, I get some deeper answers. And I kind of divide it up into these 4 quadrants of what employers are looking for. The first quadrant is workplace basic skills. Can you get along with other people? Do you have some communication skills? And for heaven's sakes, can you show up to work on time? And can you put down your cell phone? Can you put down your cell phone for the 60-minute staff meeting? Can you put away your cell phone for the 60-minute staff meeting, people over 30? Can you put away your cell phone for 60 minutes, people over 30? Can you just focus on your job and not on your cell phone for a 60-minute presentation, people over 30? This is a key issue that we hear from employers. It's not necessarily the digital natives in their 20s who have this addiction problem, but those of us over 30 who can't seem to put these away. I was talking with the HR director for Home Depot last week, and she was saying Home Depot is hiring more deaf workers. I'm not making this up. They love the deaf workers. The deaf workers are issued iPhones so that they can text with their boss to get instructions. But the deaf workers are spending less time on their cell phones. And I said, yeah, but deaf workers are on Facebook, right? She said, oh, all deaf people are on Facebook, of course. They just focus on their jobs more than the hearing people. Wow, we really love these deaf workers at Home Depot distribution centers. Third company I've heard in the last month say that. Third company. Walgreens and Bank of America have also said that. I can't stress it enough. This often comes down to soft skills. There's all kinds of ways you can define soft skills. Rick Stevens over at Boeing says there's really only 2 soft skills. And he fires people every day for failing at these soft skills. The important soft skills are, do you take responsibility for the project you're working on? And do you talk to your coworkers? And he insists, he fires people every day for failing at those 2 soft skills. He insists he holds the record in America for firing the most people who graduated from Harvard. It's fascinating to hear his approach. A lot of companies will give us the same feedback. I can't stress enough, Baylor, Scott, and White, they are leading the charge in Texas as far as measuring soft skills in job recruits and in managers. And this #1 soft skill they find is storytelling. Storytelling, they claim, is the #1 skill that they want. Fascinating how different employers approach their needs. The second component is learned skills, and the thing I want to stress here is stackable credentials. Kathy, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this, but employers tell me that they're looking for some kind of educational attainment along with some kind of industry certification, along with some other kinds of learning demonstrated. So some stackable credentials, if you want to think about a more filled out resume. I can't stress it enough. Sometimes degrees can't help. You can't be a janitor at the largest utility company in Houston if you don't have at least an associate's degree. This is not how most companies are operating, but this is a trend. Okay? Very interesting to see how different companies are behaving. I spent a day with Red McCombs. He said degrees are poppycock. He has no clue how he got his bachelor's degree in business from the University of Texas. He insists he is the dumbest person to ever graduate from the University of Texas. He's worth $3 billion. He insists he has no idea, and he insists that degrees do not matter. Any of the companies in he's got companies in 6 different industries. He insists he's got to have people with a high school diploma and 2 years of post-high school training, hopefully where they picked up marketable skills and some maturity. And that's what he's really looking for. Different companies have different philosophies. Third component here is the ability to distill. Can you listen to your coworkers? Can you listen and triangulate how to do your job better? Can you listen to coworkers who are much older, much younger, from a different race, from frankly look different than you? Can you distill that information? Can you continue to learn on the job? I'm going to race forward and wrap this up here. The fourth and final and perhaps most important component is willpower. Are you willing to go to where the jobs are? Are you willing to take a job that may not pay as much as you were making at that previous job? I was presenting at a Society of Human Resources Managers meeting over in College Station a couple of years ago. When I was done, this HR director runs up to me and she says, you know, the biggest problem we have in Texas is you people at the state labor department, you're not creating enough jobs. And I said, ma'am, we're the state labor department. We don't create the jobs, the companies do, but where are you going with this? She said, my son has a bachelor's degree from Texas A&M University. He can't find a job. He's living at home with me. And I said, ma'am, obviously the key issue is what your son got his degree in. And I leaned in to listen for the 3 problem P degrees: philosophy, political science, or psychology. She said, my son got his degree in hydrology. I said, hydrology? It's one of the most in-demand degrees we have in Texas. I can't guarantee it, but I'll bet you anything if he just went about 2 hours down to Port Arthur, Beaumont, he'd get a job by the end of the day. If he'd drive about 4 hours over to Corpus Christi, he could probably get a job by lunchtime. If he drives 7 hours over to Laredo, he could probably get a job by brunch. And if he drive about 6 hours over to Midland, Odessa, he could probably get a job by the end of breakfast. Oh, he doesn't want to go that far. I said, ma'am, well, what's it like having your 27-year-old adult son living with you? She said, oh, it's not so bad. It's not like we're mother and son. It's more like we're best friends. Every Tuesday night, we watch The Bachelor and Dancing with the Stars. My son is very good at picking the winners on The Bachelor who are going to get married. Every Wednesday night we go to dinner and a movie together. I only do one load of his laundry each week. And his two best friends from high school, they're down the street doing the same thing with their mothers. Now, you people at the State Labor Department, you got to start creating more jobs. And she stormed away. And I thought, oh, man. Oh, if you just stop coddling your little Aggie and get him out there into the workforce, it would help our entire economy. Some people can't seem to make these adjustments to the modern economy. For those of us over the age of 30, some of us may have thought that there was a career ladder, that we stay in one industry or one kind of occupation. All data shows that in America there's never been a career ladder. There's always been a career lattice. And we all start out here. Each of these yellow dots is a job that we have along the career lattice. And at each job, we've got to do two things. We've got to expand our professional network. We've got to pick up marketable skills. And as we move along, sometimes we have to take lateral moves. And along the way, at some point in our life, everybody gets fired. In America, everybody gets laid off or fired, at least once. At least once. Everybody in America gets fired. It's up to us to pick ourselves back up and try a new path. And continuing to pick up and add marketable skills and expand our professional network. People under 30 prefer when I show it as a climbing wall. It's the same concept. But some people can make these adjustments and balance will and skill, and some can't. Some Aggies can't, but others can. I'm going to wrap up with my final story here. My favorite person interview of all time was a young woman named Andrea. Andrea was deaf. Andrea is a single mother. Andrea is an orphan. I stress she's an orphan because orphans have the smallest professional network. Your family is actually the foundation of your professional network and helps you expand your professional network. If you don't have a family, you're at a bit of a disadvantage. Andrea went to a local community college very close to here. She got her associate's degree in computer networking. 1 week after she graduated, she applied for jobs with 100 companies in a community very close to here. All 100 of those companies emailed her back to say, yes, we are interested in you. We want to set up an in-person interview. She emailed back each of those 100 companies to explain, I am deaf. Here's the toll-free phone number for the Texas School of the Deaf. They need to know the street address and time of my interview. They will send out a free deaf interpreter for my interview. None of those 100 employers contacted her back. None. As a single mother, she had to go to her daughter's elementary school to find a job close to her daughter. She went out onto the sidewalk outside of her daughter's school and made concentric circles through that area of town, going door to door to find a job. And with her brand new associate's degree in computer networking, she landed a job as a dishwasher. And she did that for a while. And she eventually got a job as an office clerk. And she did that for a while. And she eventually got a job as a secretary. She did that for a while. After a few years, she got a job as a career counselor for disabled students. Now, I tell you that story because if a deaf, orphaned single mother could find a job and find a career, but anybody can. Anybody can. It comes down to balancing some of this will and skill and figuring out what you like to do in this world, what you're good at doing in this world, and how you can add value in this economy. I hope you will all visit our Workforce Solutions offices, and I hope everybody here is registered on Work in Texas. We'd love to help you more. Kathy, thank you very much. You've been a fantastic author. I appreciate it.
Thank you.